After that nice little bumper to this InfoSexy tutorial, we're going to go ahead and kick off here with the GitHub gist, which will correspond to the YouTube or Vimeo, whichever you prefer. Let's go ahead and start with step one. Download Ubuntu 18.04 and burn the ISO image onto a USB drive. I've already connected to a USB device or thumb drive to the back of my iMac. You'll go ahead and proceed with that. And then after that, you'll go to this link here. It's Ubuntu desktop download. You'll download 18.04 Ubuntu LTS. And that's version Bionic Beaver. You'll download that. And if you don't already have it, you'll also download the Untitled tool. Download that for Mac, download it for Windows, or if you prefer, if you're in Windows, you can use Rufus. I'll go ahead and refer to that after we downloaded this ISO file within Mac. But you'll download that. It'll go or default by download into your download folder, and then you will fire up the Untitled tool. So I've already downloaded it. I'm going to go ahead and pull up the Untitled device. One thing we're going to do before we burn the ISO file, we're going to format that USB device for FAT32. So you'll hit Command Spacebar, type in disk utility. Okay. And then you will click on that Untitled. That's the name of that device that I have plugged into the back of my Mac. It's a USB 3.0 thumb drive. I'm going to erase it. I'm going to format it for FAT32 or MS-DOS FAT. We're going to go ahead and format that. Okay, done. And then we're going to pull up the Untitled tool. Assuming you've already downloaded it and unpackaged it, it's ready to go. You'll click on disk image. Okay, and if you'd already downloaded Ubuntu to your download folder, you'll go to the download folder within your desktop here. You'll then click on the ISO file. You'll open that, and then we'll go ahead and proceed with burning it. That'll take up to about, I'd say, 90 seconds to 2 minutes. Let's go ahead and let that run through. If you are running a Windows device, if you're doing this in Windows, I'll go ahead and point you over to my Windows environment over here while we wait for this in Mac. What you would do here is, I'll pull up my Mac here. You would pull up the Rufus tool. That's another, you would download the Rufus tool within Windows. You would download Ubuntu within your Windows environment over here. You would then select a FAT32 device. You would format it with, assuming you already formatted that thumb drive with FAT32 within Windows. I'm sure you know how to do that. You go to Disk Formatter. You go there, Disk Formatter. And you would format that for FAT32. After it was formatted, see, you do that. You'd right-click it, you'd format it. After you would do that, you would format it, and then you would select the device that's plugged into your Windows device. You'd select FAT32. You'd then select the download file, the boot selection ISO file. I had already downloaded that into my Windows desktop there. You'd select the boot selection, select that, leave these as default, partition scheme, target scheme, volume label, all that. Everything is also good to go. It'll default by quick format, and then you would hit start. So I would hit yes, and then I would hit OK. And I'll hit OK again. So that's going on my Windows device over here. Let's click back to my my Mac environment. Should be done. Okay, so it's already done. So what I'm going to do now, if you'd been following along with me, I set everyone shotgun for the Bucephalus mine tutorial as we had installed the boot loading file within the BIOS of the mining rig. We're going to start there. We'll install the Ubuntu on that mining rig, and then we will load Ubuntu on that environment. I'm then going to focus us back, or at least return back to this desktop over here. We're going to SSH back into that desktop Ubuntu or that instance. That would be downstairs in the Bucephalus mine shaft, as you guys have seen before. And I will log in from up here, and we will essentially log in, and we will proceed with the hashcat install and the password cracking up from this environment. So think of it as I'm logging in into another local host or server host over here. We're going to log into it, and that's how we'll proceed with this tutorial. So hope you enjoy it. Let's go ahead and transition shotgun as I situate you all and have you install the ISO file onto the mining rig. Hope you enjoy. Okay, folks, welcome back to the Bucephalus Dev Stable. If you join me from the Bucephalus Mine Series tutorial, now we are retrofitting one of these miner rigs to be a supercomputer for password cracking with Hashcat. So here is that USB that I burned from my iMac, that Ubuntu 18.04 Bionic Beaver edition. We burned that onto this device with Boon or Rufus if you're in Windows, and I'm going to plug that into the USB port here within the ASRock H110 Pro BTC motherboard. I would like to go over a quick rundown of the equipment here really quick. Again, that's the ASRock H110 Pro BTC motherboard. We also have the Intel i7 3.6 GHz processor here, CPU. We also have two 16 gigabyte DDR4 RAM sticks by Corsair. Together that's 32 gigabytes of RAM, pretty powerful. Two 1000 watt G3 PSUs by EVGA. And then we have eight 8 gigabyte GPUs here by NVIDIA Asus 1080 GeForce GTX GPUs here. So pretty powerful stuff here. We're really going to use this to show exactly the capabilities of password cracking. And some of you might be joining me from the as junior devs. Maybe you've seen some hash keys within phpMyAdmin. If you've been within the cPanel and you take a look back in phpMyAdmin, you maybe notice that there are hash key sets attributed to users. Well, also, those hash key value sets are the passwords that are generated by users. So what happens is a user will generate a password, right, like anyone else would, and then once those are stored on a database, they're actually encrypted by some sort of algorithm. That could be by SHA-256, the same encryption grade protecting the Bitcoin network. There are many hashing algorithms out there, but I don't want to complicate anybody by introducing too many more than that. But essentially what a hash algorithm is, it takes a password, say like a password like dog, right? And then it takes that simple password and then it processes it through, it shoots it through an algorithm that jumbles it up with different characters, numbers, or values in sequence that are recognized by that algorithm that can only be decrypted by a certain algorithm. So if someone were to, I guess, ascertain the hash passwords, that might not really do a regular person any good. But say if a hacker, like what recently happened with the Core network, when somebody hacked that database recently, they were able to ascertain not only some valuable username data, but also the hashed passwords. So if they were able to determine the appropriate algorithm, a hacker could theoretically crack those passwords. So very scary stuff. And hacks happen every day. Like as I've said with the Saddle Up with Bucephalus Mine series, we see hacks in EMR all the time. Many doctors' offices, many databases, national healthcare systems are hacked all the time. And these hash passwords are within these databases, and who knows whatever else other kind of data that can be revealed simply by cracking these hashes that we're going to be doing here. So I would like to show everyone exactly how to bootload Ubuntu like we've done before with EthOS on one of these rigs. We're going to bootload Ubuntu 18.04. I'm going to sit you all shotgun like I've done before because you can't do a screencast within Ubuntu. Once we install Ubuntu 18.04 on the rig, I will do a brief screencast within that desktop environment to show everyone some basic, I guess, download and pre-configurations we're going to do for the Hashcat. If you're going to focus on SSHing or secure shell access into this mining rig, I'm going to do it from my study upstairs. So theoretically, you'd be doing this remotely, assuming that you have this mining rig or a mining rig like it connected to your network. You would then SSH into it, and then you would run all of the installation instructions that I've prepared on that gist, and we'd go from there because you really don't need a guided user interface for this. So anyway, without further ado, let's go ahead and transition y'all. I'm going to bring the camera around. You'll sit shotgun with me, and we'll begin installing Ubuntu 18.04 from the BIOS. Enjoy, folks. Okay, folks, again, you are sitting shotgun with me here on the DSLR because I am unable to use screencasting software within the BIOS. So let's go ahead and turn on our supercomputers. And at this point, remember, your USB thumb drive containing that ISO file should be plugged into your motherboard. And after you do that, continuously hit the F2 key to prompt the BIOS menu. Okay. We are within the BIOS menu now, and I apologize for the focus here, but you're going to go to the boot selection option here, and then you're going to select boot option number 1. You'll select the UEFI SanDisk Partition 1. It probably won't default to that option, but go ahead and select that if it's not. You want the UEFI SanDisk Partition 1. That contains that the ISO file of Ubuntu 18.04, select that, and then just to be safe, I would select your SSD hard drive. I am rocking a 1 terabyte Samsung SSD hard drive here, connected via SATA. Go ahead and select that as your option 2. That's your hard drive option 2. Then go ahead and hit exit. And it might stick here for a second. So bear with me while that saves. Yep. Exit out of that, and then hit exit, and we're going to save changes and exit. Once you do that, the supercomputer will reboot here, and then you're going to want to select Install Ubuntu. You'll see it in the top left corner here. I'm going to scroll down once, and then hit Enter. Okay, I'm going to scroll down once, hit Install Ubuntu, Enter. And this will probably cycle for, I don't know, a minute or so. Okay, so your options here, you're going to select English, assuming you're in America here. Go ahead and hit Enter. Or Continue. I'm going to select English US as the keyboard input, and then English US there as well. Continue. Then what apps would you like to install to start with? I'm going to select normal installation as a default option, and then other options, download updates while installing Ubuntu. Go ahead and select that option or leave it default as is. Hit continue. Okay, since I already have a instance installed here while preparing for this tutorial, I'm going to go ahead and select erase Ubuntu 18.04 LS and reinstall. There could be an option where you do erase disk and install Ubuntu. Whatever you do, I would just go ahead and wipe that option or wipe the instance you have contained on your SSD hard drive if you haven't already wiped it. Just make sure it's erased. But for my case, I'm going to go ahead and hit erase Ubuntu 18.04 LTS and reinstall because I already had it installed on this hard drive to prepare for this tutorial. So go ahead and hit install now. Go ahead and hit continue. I'm going to select Chicago as my central. Okay, so this is important. Time zone. So this is important. I'm going to type in my name as I usually would. And I say this because you should note the name of your computer, because if you're planning on SSHing or accessing your the supercomputer here, this mining rig, by SSH, you're going to want to remember your computer name. So I'm going to call this computer name Alexander Ubuntu. You can name it whatever you want. I have multiple devices connected on my network here. I'm going to select my username as Alexander J. Singleton. Then I'm going to choose a password. I'm just going to choose a really easy password for this tutorial. I would use a stronger one, but again, I'm going to wipe this instance as soon as I'm finished with it. Okay, and so once this is finished installing, the computer will reboot and we'll be prompted with a welcome screen, and then you will enter that password to access Ubuntu. You'll want to update everything within Ubuntu. I'll do that first, and then after this DSLR sequence here, we'll transition onto a screencast software with Ubuntu. I'll do, I guess, a quick introduction, show people around within Ubuntu, but after that I plan on transitioning back, and we'll SSH remotely within my own home network here to this supercomputer here. So let's go ahead and let this installation finish, and we should be good to go here. Okay, installation is complete. You need to restart the computer in order to use the new installation. I'm going to restart it. And then we'll be prompted with a welcome screen just like any other operating system. I'll enter my password and we'll be within the desktop. And then I'll transition onto a screencasting software into the next slide or transition. going to go ahead and select next.